In the quiet hallways of Pinecrest Elementary, what seemed like typical childhood behavior would soon reveal itself as something far more troubling. The school was neither exceptional nor failing, simply an average institution serving a middle-class, suburban community where most families kept to themselves. Behind its brick facade and colorful classroom doors, a mystery was unfolding, one that only a keen observer might notice amid the chaos of daily school routines. Ray Mendez was nearing the end of his first month as the new janitor at Pinecrest Elementary. At 52, after being laid off from manufacturing work, this job was a blessing. Stable hours and decent benefits. Every day at precisely 2:15 p.m., he would begin his hallway rotation, slowly pushing his cart with its assortment of cleaning supplies through the corridors while classes were still in session. He'd learned the rhythms of the school quickly, which teachers let their students get rowdy, which classrooms always had someone eating contraband snacks, and which bathrooms somehow became disaster zones by midday. "Mr. Ray, Mr. Ray," a voice called out. Ray turned to see Emma Chen, a bright-eyed second grader who had taken to greeting him whenever they crossed paths. "Hey there, Emma. How's your day going?" "Good. But can you please check the girls' bathroom?" Lily said. Someone wrote on the walls again. Ray nodded, making a mental note. "I'll take care of it, thanks for letting me know." As Ray continued his rounds, he noticed a girl standing in the hall outside Ms. Winter's third-grade classroom, looking uncomfortable. He recognized her as Zoe Walker, a quiet child with dark curly hair who rarely spoke to him or anyone else. "Everything okay?" Ray asked, slowing his cart. The girl just nodded, her eyes darting toward the classroom door, clearly waiting for something. Ms. Winters appeared a moment later. "Zoe, do you want to try again?" the teacher asked gently. The girl shook her head firmly, crossing her arms over her chest. Ms. Winters sighed. "All right, but remember what we talked about." She gave Ray an apologetic smile as they returned to the classroom. Later that day, Ray was cleaning the main hallway when Ms. Winters approached him. "Mr. Mendez, can I ask you something?" "Sure," Ray replied, setting his mop aside. "Have you noticed anything unusual in the girls' bathroom in the East Wing, the one near my classroom?" Ray thought for a moment. "Nothing specific. Some graffiti that I clean off regularly." "Why do you ask?" Ms. Winters lowered her voice. "It's about Zoe Walker. For almost 3 weeks now, she's refused to use any bathroom at school. I've had to call her mother twice when she couldn't hold it anymore." She looked troubled. "The school nurse checked her out and there's no medical issue. The counselor has tried talking to her, but Zoe won't say why." "That's the girl I saw in the hallway today?" Ray asked. "Yes. I've been letting her go home at lunch to use the bathroom there, but it's disrupting her school day. Her mother works from home, so it's possible, but it's not a long-term solution." Ray nodded thoughtfully. "I'll keep an extra eye on those bathrooms, see if I notice anything." "Thanks. I'm probably overthinking it, but..." Ms. Winters was interrupted by her classroom phone ringing. "I should get that. Thanks again, Mr. Mendez." The next morning, Ray paid special attention to the East Wing girls' bathroom. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, though he did notice the graffiti in the last stall was different from the usual hearts and initials. Small, tight letters covered a section of the wall, almost like a journal entry. But he couldn't make out what it said without getting closer, which he wouldn't do while students were present. During lunch period, Ray was mopping the cafeteria when he overheard 2 third-grade girls talking. "I'm never going in that stall again," one whispered. "It's creepy." "What did you hear?" her friend asked. "Like someone crying, but then there was nobody there when I looked." "Maybe it's haunted," the second girl suggested, eyes wide. "Ms. Patel says there's no such thing as ghosts," the first girl replied firmly, though she didn't sound convinced. Ray made a mental note of the conversation but continued his work. After school hours, when all the students had left, he returned to the East Wing bathroom, armed with cleaning supplies and curiosity. The bathroom was empty and quiet, the fluorescent lights humming steadily overhead. Ray approached the last stall, the one furthest from the door, and pushed it open. What he found made his stomach tighten. The back wall of the stall was covered with small, careful writing, a child's handwriting, but the content was disturbing. Amid drawings of what appeared to be a house with dark shadows around it were phrases like, "Nobody believes me" and "can't tell," repeated in different patterns. In one corner was a meticulous calendar, with X marks through most days and circled dates that seemed to follow no pattern he could discern. But what truly caught Ray's attention was a folded piece of paper tucked behind the toilet paper dispenser. He carefully removed it, unfolding what appeared to be a letter written in the same tight handwriting. "Dear bathroom friend, I can't go home on the days with circles. That's when he visits. Mom doesn't see what he does when she's busy working. She thinks I'm making it up. I'm not supposed to tell anyone or something bad will happen to us. The last stall is my safe place. Please don't tell." Ray felt a chill run through him as he carefully refolded the note. This wasn't typical childhood bathroom avoidance. This was something much more concerning. He knew immediately that he needed to share this discovery, but he also felt the weight of the trust that had been placed in this safe place. Tucking the note into his pocket, Ray spent the next 30 minutes photographing the stall walls with his phone before cleaning off the writing. He left only the calendar untouched, sensing it might be important to whoever Zed was, almost certainly Zoe Walker. As he exited the bathroom, his cleaning cart forgotten, Ray headed straight for the main office where he knew the principal and school counselor would still be working. This wasn't just about a child refusing to use the bathroom anymore. It was about a child silently crying out for help in the only way she knew how. The next morning, Principal Diana Grayson sat at her desk, reading through the note for the third time. Across from her, school counselor Anita Patel and Ray Mendez waited silently. The small office felt even more cramped with the weight of their concern. "And you found this yesterday afternoon?" Principal Grayson asked, looking up at Ray. "Yes, ma'am. Right after the last bell." Ray shifted in his chair. "I cleaned most of the writing off the walls like I'm supposed to, but I left that calendar untouched. Figured it might be important." Ms. Patel nodded. "It was the right call, Ray. Thank you for bringing this to us immediately." Principal Grayson placed the note carefully on her desk. "This is concerning, to say the least. The references to he visits and what he does suggest a potentially dangerous situation." She turned to Ms. Patel. "Anita, you've had sessions with Zoe, correct? Has she given any indications of problems at home?" "Nothing this explicit," Ms. Patel replied. "She's quiet, withdrawn. She mentioned her mother works from home as a graphic designer and is often busy with deadlines. There's a boyfriend who comes around sometimes, but Zoe barely mentioned him. Just said his name was Derek and he brings her candy she doesn't like." "And the father?" Principal Grayson asked. "Military, deployed overseas for the past 8 months." Ray listened carefully. The note mentioned circled days when she can't go home. "I noticed on that calendar in the bathroom stall that tomorrow is circled." Ms. Patel checked her phone calendar. "That lines up with what her mother told us about Zoe's new therapy appointments. Every other Thursday afternoon. She said they started recently to help with Zoe's adjustment issues while her father is deployed." Principal Grayson frowned. "That's an interesting coincidence." "I'm not sure it is a coincidence," Ray said quietly. "Something about this feels wrong. The way that note was hidden, not just written on the wall, but tucked away. Like she wanted someone to find it, but was afraid of it being found too easily." Principal Grayson sighed. "We need to proceed carefully. As educators, we're mandated reporters, but we also need more information before making accusations. The last thing we want is to traumatize Zoe further if this is a misunderstanding." "I have my regular session with Zoe this morning," Ms. Patel said. "I can try to get her to open up more, but I'll need to be subtle. Direct questioning might cause her to shut down completely." "And what about Ms. Winters?" Ray asked. "She seems to have a good relationship with Zoe." "Good point," Principal Grayson agreed. "Anita, brief Jessica on the situation after your session with Zoe. In the meantime, Ray, I'd like you to keep an eye on that bathroom stall. If Zoe adds anything new, we need to know." As they left the principal's office, Ms. Patel touched Ray's arm. "Thank you for paying attention. Many people would have just cleaned the walls and moved on. My sister was a social worker, Ray replied. She taught me that sometimes the smallest details can be the most important. Later that morning, Ms. Patel sat across from Zoe Walker in the counselor's office. The room was designed to feel safe and welcoming, with comfortable furniture, soft lighting, and art supplies readily available. Zoe sat quietly, fidgeting with a strand of her dark curly hair. "How are you feeling today, Zoe?" Ms. Patel asked gently. "Fine," came the predictable response. "I noticed you've been bringing your lunch from home lately. No more cafeteria pizza on Wednesdays?" Zoe shrugged. "Mom says it's healthier." Ms. Patel nodded. "How are things at home? Is your mom still busy with work?" "She has big projects due." Zoe picked up a colored pencil and began drawing on the paper Ms. Patel had provided. "She works in her office with the door closed." "And how about when she's not working? Do you two do fun things together?" Zoe continued drawing, adding a house with several windows. "Sometimes, not on Thursdays." Ms. Patel kept her expression neutral despite the internal alert. "What happens on Thursdays?" Zoe's pencil stilled. "I have therapy. With Dr. Reynolds, right? How do you like her?" The girl's shoulders tensed slightly. "It's not a her." Ms. Patel made a note. "I'm sorry, my mistake. How do you like your sessions?" "I don't want to talk about that," Zoe said firmly, returning to her drawing with more forceful strokes. Ms. Patel shifted tactics. "I understand Ms. Winters has been letting you go home during lunch to use the bathroom. Is there something about the school bathrooms that bothers you?" Zoe didn't respond immediately. When she did, her voice was barely audible. "The last stall is supposed to be safe." "Safe from what, Zoe?" The girl looked up, her dark eyes suddenly fearful. "Did someone clean it, my writing?" Ms. Patel chose her next words carefully. "Some of it, yes, that's the janitor's job. But the calendar is still there." Zoe seemed to relax slightly. "Good. I need it." "Zoe, I want you to know that if something is worrying you or scaring you, you can tell me. That's my job, to help kids with big feelings and big problems." "You can't help with this," Zoe whispered, returning to her drawing. Ms. Patel observed as Zoe drew what appeared to be a bedroom, with a small figure that might be herself huddled in a corner. A larger, shadowy figure stood in the doorway. "Is that your room at home?" Ms. Patel asked casually. Zoe nodded. "And who's that in the doorway?" Zoe's pencil broke under the pressure she suddenly applied. She stared at the broken pencil, then at the drawing. Without warning, she snatched up the paper and tore it into pieces. "I want to go back to class now," she said, her voice shaking slightly. Ms. Patel knew pushing further would be counterproductive. "All right, Zoe. But remember, my door is always open if you want to talk. About anything at all." After Zoe left, Ms. Patel carefully gathered the torn pieces of the drawing and pieced them together on her desk. The shadowy figure in the doorway was unnervingly detailed compared to the rest of the drawing. A man with what appeared to be a beard, wearing a jacket with some kind of emblem or logo on it. During lunch period, Ray was mopping the hallway, outside the East Wing bathrooms, when he noticed Zoe Walker approaching cautiously. She glanced around, then slipped into the girls' bathroom when she thought no one was watching. Ray continued his work, positioning himself where he could see the bathroom entrance without being obvious. After about 10 minutes, Zoe emerged, looking slightly more relaxed than when she'd entered. She hurried back toward her classroom without noticing Ray. Once the hallway was clear, Ray entered the bathroom and checked the last stall. As he suspected, there were new additions to the calendar. The circled date for tomorrow now had something written inside the circle: Dr. D, 4 p.m. And below the calendar, in small letters, 3 more months until Dad comes home. Ray photographed these additions before continuing his rounds. Later, during his break, he found Ms. Winters in the faculty lounge. "Ms. Winters," he said quietly, sitting down across from her. "Principal Grayson wants me to update you on something about Zoe Walker." Jessica Winters listened intently as Ray explained their findings, her expression growing increasingly troubled. "I've suspected something was wrong," she admitted when he finished. "Zoe used to be so different, energetic, talkative. The change started gradually about 2 months ago. First, she stopped participating in class discussions. Then she began having accidents because she refused to use the bathroom. She shook her head. I should have pushed harder to find out why. This isn't on you, Ray assured her. Kids hide things well when they're scared, and it sounds like Zoe is very scared. What's our next step? I'm seeing her mother at pickup today for our scheduled conference about Zoe's recent academic struggles. Ms. Patel suggested you try to get more information about this therapy Zoe's supposedly attending. Find out the doctor's full name if possible, where the office is located, anything that might help us verify whether this is legitimate treatment. Or Ray didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I'll do my best, Ms. Winters promised. That afternoon, as classes ended, Ray watched from a distance as Ms. Winters spoke with a harried-looking woman in the pickup area. Zoe stood silently beside her mother, eyes downcast. Later, Ms. Winters found Ray cleaning the third-grade hallway. The mother says Zoe sees a child psychologist named Dr. Derek Tennant every other Thursday, she reported in a low voice. But when I asked for his office information to coordinate care, she got defensive, said it was private and she'd handle any school-related concerns herself. Derek, Ray repeated, the boyfriend's name. Ms. Winters nodded grimly. And there's something else. When I mentioned that Zoe seems especially anxious on Thursdays, her mother looked confused. She said Zoe loves her therapy sessions because Derek always brings special treats. A chill ran through Ray's spine. The pieces were starting to fit together, forming a picture he didn't want to see. Tomorrow is Thursday, he said quietly. Yes, Ms. Winters replied. And we need to figure out what happens during those so-called therapy sessions before Zoe leaves. School tomorrow afternoon. Thursday morning arrived with an unusual tension hanging over Pinecrest Elementary. Ray arrived earlier than usual, checking the East Wing bathroom before students began filtering into the building. The calendar remained untouched from yesterday, but he noticed something new. A small stick figure drawing beneath it with what appeared to be a clock showing 4 hours, and the words, "Last time," scrawled beside it. Ray photographed this addition and forwarded it immediately to Principal Grayson and Ms. Patel. Within minutes, he received a text from the principal asking him to come to her office. When Ray entered, he found not only Principal Grayson and Ms. Patel but also Ms. Winters and a woman he didn't recognize, middle-aged with short gray hair and a no-nonsense demeanor in a navy pantsuit. Mr. Mendez, this is Diane Reeves from Child Protective Services, Principal Grayson explained. We've brought her in given the concerning nature of what we've discovered. Ms. Reeves nodded at Ray. Thank you for your attentiveness, Mr. Mendez. Your observations may prove crucial in this case. I've filled Ms. Reeves in on what we know so far, Principal Grayson continued. But we're still missing crucial pieces of information. Ms. Reeves leaned forward. Based on what you've shared, there's definitely cause for concern, but we need to proceed carefully. If our suspicions are correct, this child is being abused by someone she's been told to trust, possibly her mother's boyfriend posing as a therapist. The note mentioned he visits on the circled days, Ray pointed out, and today's circle has DRD 4 p.m. written in it. Derek Tennant, Ms. Winters added. That's the name her mother gave me for the supposed psychologist. Ms. Reeves made notes in her file. I've already checked the state licensing board. There is no psychologist or therapist by that name registered anywhere in the state. A heavy silence fell over the room. So what do we do now? Ray finally asked. We can't just let her leave with him today. No, we certainly cannot, Ms. Reeves agreed. But we need more than circumstantial evidence before we can take official action. If we move too quickly without solid proof, we risk several negative outcomes. The mother could withdraw Zoe from school, move away, or the abuser could escalate his behavior if he feels threatened. So we need Zoe to tell us directly what's happening, Ms. Patel concluded. Ideally, yes, Ms. Reeves confirmed. Children in these situations are often threatened or manipulated into silence. Zoe's bathroom writings suggest she wants someone to know, but she's afraid to tell directly. Ms. Winters looked troubled. She's been so withdrawn lately. I'm not sure she'll open up, even to Ms. Patel. She might, Ray said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Not to be disrespectful, but sometimes kids find it easier to talk to people who aren't authority figures. The bathroom stall was her way of communicating without directly telling an adult in charge. Ms. Patel considered this. You might be right, Ray. Zoe hasn't been forthcoming in our sessions, but she chose that bathroom stall as her safe space to express herself. What are you suggesting, Mr. Mendez? Principal Grayson asked. Ray shifted uncomfortably. I'm not sure it's my place. Please, share your thoughts, Ms. Reeves encouraged. In these situations, unconventional approaches sometimes work best. Well, Ray began, what if we create a situation where she doesn't feel like she's being interrogated? Maybe during lunch I could be cleaning near her bathroom stall, and if she comes in, I could let her know I've seen her messages but haven't told anyone the details, that I'm keeping her calendar safe. He looked around uncertainly. It might help her feel she has an ally who isn't asking her direct questions. The others exchanged glances. It's unorthodox, Principal Grayson admitted. But it might work, Ms. Patel said. Ray has already shown sensitivity to this situation, and Zoe might feel less threatened by a conversation with the janitor than with any of us at this point. Ms. Reeves nodded slowly. I've seen cases where children opened up to bus drivers, cafeteria workers, or other staff they didn't perceive as having authority over them. Let's try it. But Mr. Mendez, if she does begin to talk, don't press her for details. Just listen and let her know she's safe to tell the truth. I understand, Ray assured them. The plan set, they dispersed to their regular duties. Ms. Winters returned to her classroom where Zoe had just arrived, looking unusually tired, dark circles visible beneath her eyes. Good morning, Zoe, Ms. Winters greeted her warmly. How are you today? Fine, came the customary response as Zoe took her seat. Throughout the morning, Ms. Winters noticed Zoe checking the clock repeatedly, growing more fidgety as lunch approached. When the lunch bell finally rang, Zoe was the first to pack up her things. Zoe, Ms. Winters called gently before she could leave. Would you stay for just a minute? The girl froze, then slowly approached the teacher's desk. Is something wrong? Zoe asked, her voice barely audible. Not wrong, no, Ms. Winters assured her. I just wanted to check in. You seemed a bit distracted this morning. Zoe shrugged. I'm fine. I noticed you looking at the clock a lot. Are you worried about something happening later today? Zoe's eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. No, I just get hungry before lunch. Ms. Winters knew pushing harder would only make Zoe retreat further. Well, if you ever want to talk about anything at all, my door is always open. Even things that might seem scary to talk about. Zoe nodded silently, then hurried from the classroom toward the cafeteria. After quickly eating half her lunch, Zoe slipped away from the cafeteria and headed toward the East Wing bathrooms. Ray, positioned nearby with his cleaning cart, gave her a few minutes before following. Inside, he deliberately made noise with his cart so she would know someone was there. Maintenance, he called out. Just need to check the paper towel dispensers. Everything okay in there? There was a long pause. Yes, came Zoe's small voice from the last stall. Ray slowly restocked the paper towels, then said casually, I noticed someone's been writing on the walls in that last stall. Had to clean most of it off, it's my job, you know. But I left the calendar, seemed important. Another long silence followed. Then hesitantly, You saw the calendar? Yes, Ray replied. The one with the circles on Thursdays. Today has a circle. He heard a small shuffling sound from the stall. Did you read the other stuff too? Some of it, Ray admitted. About someone visiting on circle days. About it being a safe place to write things. The stall door opened a crack, and Ray could see one of Zoe's eyes peering out at him. Did you tell anyone? Ray chose his words carefully. I had to tell the principal about finding writing on the walls, that's my job. But I didn't tell her exactly what all of it said. This wasn't entirely true, but he sensed Zoe needed to believe someone was keeping her confidence. Zoe pushed the door open a bit more. Today is a circle day. I know, Ray said gently. The calendar says DRD 4 p.m. today. Zoe's face crumpled slightly. I don't want to go. To see Dr. D? Ray asked, keeping his voice neutral. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. Why not? Ray asked. Most kids don't mind seeing doctors. He's not a real doctor, Zoe whispered, finally stepping fully out of the stall. He's Mom's boyfriend. She thinks he's helping me, but he... She trailed off, looking down at her shoes. Ray knelt down to be at her eye level, maintaining a respectful distance. Zoe, does he hurt you? A tear slid down her cheek as she nodded. Does he touch you in ways that make you feel bad or uncomfortable? Another nod, more tears. Ray's heart ached. Have you told your mom? She doesn't believe me, Zoe whispered. She says I'm making up stories because I miss my dad and don't want her to date anyone. She says Derek is helping me with my issues because he has psychology training. She looked up at Ray, her eyes pleading. But real doctors see patients in offices, right? Not in their bedrooms when Mom goes to the store. Ray felt a cold fury building inside him but kept his expression gentle. You're right, Zoe. Real doctors don't do that, and what he's doing is wrong. He paused, then asked, Would you be willing to tell Ms. Patel or Principal Grayson what you just told me? They can help make sure you don't have to go with him today. Fear flashed across Zoe's face. But what if my mom gets mad? What if Derek hurts her? He said if I told anyone, bad things would happen. Zoe, listen to me, Ray said firmly but kindly. What Derek is doing is against the law. There are people whose job it is to protect kids from adults who hurt them, but they can only help if they know what's happening. Zoe considered this, wiping tears from her cheeks. Will I have to see him again if I tell? No, Ray promised. You won't have to see him again. Zoe took a deep breath. Okay, I'll tell. Ray escorted Zoe to Ms. Patel's office where they found the counselor with Ms. Reeves from CPS. Gently, they explained to Zoe who Ms. Reeves was and why she was there. To everyone's surprise, once Zoe understood this woman's job was specifically to protect children, the words began pouring out. She described how Derek had begun visiting their home shortly after her father deployed overseas. How at first he'd just brought her candy and played board games with her. Then came the special therapy sessions to help her adjust to her father's absence. He says I'm special, Zoe explained in a small voice. That it's our secret game. But it doesn't feel like a game. It hurts and it's scary. Ms. Reeves recorded the conversation, asking occasional clarifying questions in a gentle, non-threatening manner. Ms. Patel stayed beside Zoe, offering tissues and reassurance. Zoe, you're being incredibly brave, Ms. Reeves told her when she'd finished. And I promise you, what happened is not your fault, none of it. What happens now? Zoe asked, her voice steadier than it had been all day. Now we make sure you're safe, Ms. Reeves explained. I'm going to talk to your mom and explain what's been happening. Derek won't be allowed to see you anymore. But my mom, Zoe began, looking worried. Your mom loves you, Ms. Patel assured her. She may be upset at first, but once she understands what's really been happening, she'll want to protect you too. What about today? Ray asked. He's supposed to pick her up at 4:00. Ms. Reeves glanced at her watch. We have time to put a safety plan in place. Zoe won't be going anywhere with him today or ever again. As they finalized details, Ray noticed Zoe looked both exhausted and relieved, like someone who had been carrying a heavy burden for too long had finally set it down. Mr. Ray? Zoe said quietly as the others discussed logistics. Yes? Thank you for not cleaning my calendar. She gave him the first genuine smile he'd seen from her, and for believing me. Ray felt his throat tighten with emotion. Always, Zoe. That's what grown-ups are supposed to do. Believe kids when they're brave enough to tell the truth. For the first time in months, Zoe Walker felt safe. The secret that had been suffocating her was finally out in the open, where it could no longer hurt her. And it had started with a janitor who paid attention to a child's desperate messages written on a bathroom wall. Tentar novamente Gigi, 3 weeks had passed since the day Zoe revealed her secret. The school hallways felt lighter somehow, as if a dark cloud had lifted from Pinecrest Elementary. Ray noticed the difference most clearly in the East Wing girls' bathroom, where the last stall now remained clean of desperate messages. Instead, occasionally, he'd find small drawings of smiling faces or flowers, signs of healing rather than hurt. The confrontation with Derek Tennant had been swift and decisive. Ms. Reeves from Child Protective Services had coordinated with local police to ensure he was intercepted when he arrived at the school that Thursday afternoon. Ray had watched from the window of the teacher's lounge as officers approached a well-dressed man in the parking lot. Derek had attempted to flee, but was quickly apprehended. The charges against him were serious and numerous. Zoe's mother, Amanda Walker, had collapsed in tears when confronted with the evidence of what had been happening to her daughter. Her initial disbelief had quickly given way to horror and guilt. Ray had glimpsed her in Principal Grayson's office that day, sobbing uncontrollably as the full impact of her boyfriend's betrayal and her daughter's suffering sank in. This morning, as Ray pushed his cart through the third-grade hallway, he noticed Zoe and her mother approaching the school entrance. The change in both of them was remarkable. Amanda walked with her head held higher, no longer rushing with the frantic energy of someone barely keeping up with life. Zoe skipped beside her, chattering animatedly, a complete transformation from the silent, withdrawn child of just weeks ago. "Good morning, Mr. Ray," Zoe called out cheerfully when she spotted him. "Morning, Zoe, Mrs. Walker." Ray nodded, smiling. Amanda stopped, placing a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Mr. Mendez, I've been hoping to catch you." Her voice was steady but filled with emotion. "I never properly thanked you for what you did for Zoe." Ray shook his head. "Just doing my job, ma'am." "No," Amanda insisted. "You weren't just doing your job. You were paying attention when no one else was. When I wasn't." Her voice caught slightly. "You saved my daughter from something terrible, and you may have saved our family. I can never repay that." Ray felt uncomfortable with the praise but understood her need to express gratitude. "How are things going?" he asked, changing the subject. Amanda smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. "Better. We're in family therapy now, the real kind, with a licensed professional in an actual office." She laughed softly at this. "And we video chat with Zoe's dad every other day. He's been approved for emergency leave and will be home next week." "That's wonderful news," Ray said sincerely. "And I'm not afraid of the bathroom anymore," Zoe announced proudly. "Ms. Patel says it's okay to be proud of progress." "She's absolutely right," Ray agreed, feeling a surge of admiration for this resilient young girl. The first bell rang, and Zoe gave her mother a quick hug before darting off to her classroom. Amanda watched her go, then turned back to Ray. "She wanted me to give you this," she said, handing him a folded piece of paper. "Thank you again, Mr. Mendez." As Amanda walked away, Ray unfolded the paper to find a crayon drawing of a smiling girl standing next to a tall figure in blue, clearly meant to be him with his janitor's uniform. Above them, written in careful letters, "My hero." Ray carefully refolded the drawing and tucked it into his pocket, feeling a warmth spread through his chest as he continued his morning routine. Later that day, Principal Grayson called a special faculty meeting. The teachers filed into the conference room, expressions curious as they noted the presence of not only the principal and counselor, but also Superintendent Harris and two unfamiliar faces, a woman in a business suit and an older man in uniform. "Thank you all for coming," Principal Grayson began once everyone was seated. "As you know, our school recently handled a difficult child protection case. Today I'd like to introduce Colonel James Walker, Zoe's father, who has just returned from deployment, and Patricia Morales from the Department of Education's Child Safety Division." The man in uniform nodded solemnly. His resemblance to Zoe was unmistakable, the same dark curly hair and thoughtful eyes. "I've come here today for two reasons," Colonel Walker said, his voice deep and steady. "First, to personally thank the staff of this school for protecting my daughter when I couldn't be here to do so. And second, to work with Ms. Morales on implementing a new safety protocol that might help other children in similar situations. Ms. Morales stepped forward. What happened to Zoe Walker is, unfortunately, not isolated. Children often lack the vocabulary or confidence to directly report abuse, particularly when the abuser is someone in a position of trust. However, they frequently communicate their distress in other ways, through behavior changes, artwork, or as in Zoe's case, through messages hidden in places they consider safe. She gestured to a stack of folders on the conference table. The protocol we're proposing is called SEEN, Safety Through Environmental Engagement Network. It's designed to train all school personnel, not just teachers and counselors, but custodial, staff, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, and administrative assistants, to recognize signs of potential abuse or neglect. Ray, sitting quietly at the back of the room, felt a surge of validation. His role, often overlooked in the educational hierarchy, had proven crucial in Zoe's case. The protocol emphasizes that every adult in a child's school environment has the potential to be a lifeline, Ms. Morales continued. It includes specific training on recognizing concerning behavioral patterns, creating environments where children feel safe to communicate, and proper reporting procedures. Superintendent Harris spoke next. Pinecrest Elementary will be piloting this program for our district. If successful, we hope to implement it countywide. Principal Grayson has already identified Mr. Raymond Mendez as a potential lead trainer for custodial and maintenance staff. Ray looked up in surprise as several heads turned in his direction. Your attention to detail and compassionate approach made all the difference in Zoe's case, Principal Grayson explained. We believe you have valuable insights to share with others in similar roles. After the meeting, Colonel Walker approached Ray in the hallway. Mr. Mendez, he said, extending his hand. I wanted to thank you personally. When I deployed, I entrusted my daughter's safety to our support systems here, at home. You fulfilled that trust in a way I never anticipated needing, but am eternally grateful for. Ray shook the man's hand firmly. Just glad I was there to help, sir. Zoe's a brave girl. Yes, she is, Colonel Walker agreed, his expression softening. She gets that from her mother, though Amanda doesn't see it yet. They're both healing now, thanks in large part to you. How long will you be home? Ray asked. Indefinitely, Colonel Walker replied. I've been reassigned to a stateside position. My family needs me here, and the Army understands that. As Colonel Walker walked away, Ms. Winters approached Ray with a smile. Looks like you're going to be wearing another hat around here, she said. Lead trainer, that's quite an honor. Ray shrugged. Not sure how I feel about that part. I'm just a janitor. No, Ms. Winters corrected firmly. You're never just anything, Ray. You're observant, compassionate, and willing to act when something seems wrong. Those qualities make you exactly the right person to train others. The following week, Ray found himself in front of a small group of custodial and maintenance staff from several schools in the district. His initial nervousness faded as he began sharing Zoe's story, anonymized of course, and the lessons he'd learned from it. The thing is, he explained, kids communicate in all kinds of ways. Sometimes they don't have the words to tell an adult directly when something's wrong, or they've been threatened into silence, but they might leave clues in places they consider safe, places where they have privacy. The group listened attentively as Ray outlined specific signs to watch for: unusual writing or drawings in hidden places, sudden behavioral changes, consistent avoidance of certain areas or activities. You might be the first person to notice something's off, Ray concluded. And in some cases, like Zoe's, you might be the person a child feels safest confiding in, simply because you're not seen as an authority figure who might judge them or get them in trouble. After the training session, Ray headed back to his regular duties at Pinecrest. As he pushed his cart through the now familiar hallways, he reflected on how much had changed in just a few short weeks. Zoe was healing, her family reunited. A new safety protocol was being implemented, and he, a 52-year-old janitor who'd taken this job out of necessity rather than choice, had found a deeper purpose in his work than he'd ever imagined possible. Passing by Ms. Winters' classroom, Ray paused at the sound of laughter. Through the doorway, he could see Zoe surrounded by classmates, her hand raised eagerly to answer a question. The transformation was remarkable. From a child too afraid to use the bathroom to one who participated fully in class, unafraid to make her voice heard. That afternoon, as Ray cleaned the East Wing bathroom, he noticed something new in the last stall. Where once desperate pleas for help had been scrawled, there was now a single sentence written in neat, childish handwriting. "This is still my safe place, but now I'm safe everywhere." Ray smiled, leaving the message intact. Some words deserved to remain. 2 months later, the local newspaper ran a feature story on the scene protocol being implemented throughout the school district. The article highlighted the collaborative effort between education professionals, child protection services, and support staff that had led to its development. Ray's role was mentioned briefly, a custodian who noticed concerning messages written by a student and took appropriate action, but the full extent of his contribution remained private as he preferred. The publicity led to interest from neighboring districts and eventually caught the attention of state education officials. By the end of the school year, plans were underway to adopt the protocol statewide, with potential for national implementation. For Ray, however, the most meaningful outcome wasn't the protocol or the recognition. It was the daily sight of Zoe Walker walking confidently through the school hallways, no longer afraid, no longer alone with her secret. It was the knowledge that because one child had been seen and heard, countless others would be too. On the last day of school, as students cleared out their desks and said goodbye to teachers, Ray found an envelope taped to his custodial closet door. Inside was a card signed by Zoe, her parents, Ms. Winters, Principal Grayson, and Ms. Patel. The message was simple. Some heroes wear blue uniforms and carry mops. Thank you for seeing what others missed and for reminding us all that keeping children safe is everyone's responsibility. Ray pinned the card to the inside of his closet door where he would see it every day. A reminder that sometimes the most important work happens in the quietest ways, by people who are paying attention when it matters most. That afternoon, as he made his final rounds through the empty school building, Ray paused outside the East Wing bathroom. Pushing open the door, he walked to the last stall and found one last message waiting for him. "Thank you, Mr. Ray. See you next year." Below it was a small drawing of a calendar with every day circled, no longer marking days to fear, but days to look forward to in a future now full of promise. Ray smiled, touching the drawing gently. Then he closed the stall door, leaving Zoe's message intact. Some communications weren't meant to be cleaned away but preserved as testaments to healing, hope, and the power of being truly seen.